Welcome to Playful Beginnings, a podcast about the magic of play therapy for therapists, students, and anyone interested. In our podcast, we'll explore the deeper understanding of play therapy and the skills we use when working with children.
We hope to help you understand the why behind what we do and how it helps kids heal and grow. I'm Dr. Christy Opiola, a working play therapist and university professor in North Carolina.
I'm Dr. Maggie Parker, a play therapist and professor in DC. We've got a plan, and one of the things that we wanted to talk about today is diagnosis. So, I think we've probably highlighted why we think CCPT works with diagnoses and how we utilize it and how we approach diagnosing. I wonder how, when you're talking with parents or teachers, do you kind of frame this for them, not about a specific diagnosis, but a lot of times I don't know about you, but I'll hear parents, oh, well, my son or my child was diagnosed with XYZ. Does this work with that?
And I often thank them for sharing that information with me. Oh, that's really helpful information. Thank you. It sounds maybe this is being experienced in multiple places. It's not maybe just you seeing it at home, but if they tell me where it got diagnosed from, that's helpful because then I can say, okay, the kid's having trouble at school, right? I'm looking at it more as a map of how behavior is showing up. I let parents know that I also to assess the child in the playroom to see if this behavior shows up in this space as well. Because when I put my name to the diagnoses, right, it means I'm confirming that I see the same behaviors in my work with the child. And so, which can be helpful information because maybe there's some spaces these behaviors show up, these symptoms show up, and other places they don't show up. It doesn't mean we can't use that because what I really communicate with parents is that's really how our managed healthcare works. And so for reimbursement purposes and for filing purposes, a diagnosis is required sometimes for your health insurance. And so that gives me a quick place to kind of assess. And even if maybe I'm not seeing it in this space, I can use that diagnosis for billing purposes. And then I give the credit to the person who diagnosed them.
Yes.
So I'll put diagnosed from, diagnosed with ADHD from, and then I give if it's a school psychologist or if it's a psychiatrist that they've worked for or a previous therapist, but I don't just automatically digest that information and take it, as just 100% fact.
Yeah.
And then I do talk to parents. Oh, go ahead.
I'm going to pause you real quick. So that's two different things. One is thank you for this information. This is how I think, this could align. And then in the documentation, noting that and saying, this is who gave that diagnosis. So I think those two things are separate but important. You're not signing off automatically, oh, here, it's definitely this, because you haven't met that child, but often you need a diagnosis. And so you can put in the previous diagnosis and who it was from. Okay, go ahead.
Thanks for interpreting and simplifying all that I just said. I ask parents if the person who gave them that diagnosis went through the symptomology with them. And then I talk about how the DSM is designed and kind of created and the use of it. And so I will actually print out a worksheet for parents of the diagnostic categories, and I kind of go through it with them. And I talk about that these are just behaviors. They're ways that kids are communicating, and these are common behaviors that your child is displaying in different areas. It may be at home with you, and sometimes parents are like, actually, I don't see any of these. And that's a great thing for me to know, right? It's really in school settings, it's in really structured settings. So that's really important information for us to look at, right? Because here I am, there is some structure to my play space, but there's also a lot of freedom for the child. So that it means that it may not show up here. So that is one thing I kind of go through and I just talk about it. And then I really convey the message that the idea that these are communication tools your child is using to share that something is maybe troubling them or that they're having difficulty with, right? So almost there's not a permanency to what I'm seeing for this child, that this is really, they're trying to convey that environments don't have the supports they need, or maybe they need different supports, and that's what the child is trying to communicate. Then I go into how CCPT can help. So I talk about what my space is and how I believe based on what the parent has shared with me, the behaviors that come up. So I really try to link. I don't have a universal elevator speech that I give every parent, but I talk specifically about what they've shared with me and how child centered play therapy can be supportive of those areas of struggle. And as the child, one thing I think I do share universally with parents is, right, as the child is able to communicate through play and their behavior and the language that they use in the playroom, my hope is that they can gain more awareness of what's happening for them. And then as they have more awareness, right, then they'll start utilizing different strategies and coping techniques, practice those in the play space to be supportive of them in other spaces. So they almost use this as an in situ environment for them to trial and error the different things that they're struggling with the support of me as the therapist in the play space. I'm not going to bring those up. I'm sure there's going to be things you want me to address. I want to ensure you that things that they're struggling with come up in the play space all the time. Right? I don't have to bring them up. If they're really bothering them, they'll show up. Now, they may not show up specifically. They may not say to me at school today, Johnny did this and it really frustrated me and I punched him in the face. It reminds me of the meeting Andrew or introducing Andrew through APT, where if you guys haven't seen that video, it's a great video from APT. You can find it on their YouTube page. But, he's talking in adult language about things. We don't see it that way in play therapy. It may be metaphorical, it may be several layers removed, but they're working on these subtle things regularly in the play space. And so I want to reassure you that sometimes it takes me a session or two to really connect things, or maybe sometimes I can't connect them at all, but we're seeing relief outside of the play space. That is what's most important, is that, they're utilizing this space. And then I talk about how I do want to meet with them again. And if anything, big and troubling happens, to please let me know. It's best to let me know not in front of your child, all of these other things that we do regularly. That's really hard for caregivers. Sometimes it's when they see you, they also want to unleash all of this stuff, and just reminding them that, this is a safe space for your kiddo. And if we need to talk, just let me know and I can call you later. Or if you want to leave me a voicemail before the kid comes in, I'm happy to listen to it. If I have a day full of sessions, I may not be able to get to it before I see them, but I will listen to it. Or if you want to leave me a voicemail message and to say, hey, I need you to listen to the message I left you before you see Christy today, that's fine too.
Yeah. No, and I think what it is you're outlining it in ways that are understandable for parents. This is helpful information. What of these do you think that you're noticing?
Mm-hmm.
Where are these coming up? This is how CCPT and my approach is that I'm trying to gather information from what your child is communicating, and that they do communicate within these spaces, sometimes very differently than they're going to communicate outside of these spaces. And that
Yep.
through this understanding and engagement and allowing them to communicate in these ways, they gain awareness and understanding, and that they can practice new ways of being and within this safe environment that then can translate outside. So we're not working specifically on sitting still, but that
Right.
may come out in a different way, and that we are there. And I think one of the things, in addition to that, that I try and relate to parents is that it's really hard to try new things if you're scared or you're nervous that you're going to get in trouble. And if you don't know what's, the outcome. And so if you know that I'm going to be consistent and accepting and understanding, you can try out new things and see how it feels in that moment. And it may take a long time and it may take not long. But I think that's how, I think both of these ways are how we are addressing the diagnosis in a general way. So, yeah.
Well, I think it goes back to that firm belief that we as CCPT, and I think therapists in general, look at play as healing, right? That is a healing factor. And there's, when we look at the therapeutic qualities of play, Drew's and Schaefer's work, right, is just showing all the different ways that play can be healing for kids.
So if we kind of think about it, if we were kind of wrap it up, that it is a tool, it's not a truth or fact, right? It is something that helps us, and it's one piece of the pie, that we are looking at the whole child and what it is that they're communicating to us, and that we kind of share these pieces with parents and try and use this experience to help understand what the symptoms are, where they're showing up, and then what to help us as we're in the space trying to understand what the child's communicating, because we have to be able to talk to the parents about it to make them aware of how it's effective. And so it is important that we link those things for them, but that we're not using them to structure or change the relationship within the play space. So that's helpful, I hope.
Yeah. The other things that I'm kind of thinking of, right? I'm hoping this discussion is an invitation for people to be reflective of their own practice around diagnoses. In particular, our child-centered colleagues out there, right? How do you use diagnoses and how does it influence the way you interact with kids? Or sometimes I think something that can happen is if I expect something, then I'm going to be ready and armed to respond to something, right? Which then goes back to one of my favorite quotes from Dr. Landreth, which is meet the kid with expectancy and not expectation, right? Then when we're expecting it, right, then we're coming in with expectation. So it can limit the way we interact with the kiddo. So to be mindful of that. And it also is, an invitation to really look at this child beyond the labels that have been placed on this child. If that's for clinicians, if that's for parents, if that's for other caregivers or professionals that work with kids, that, this is one piece of a big puzzle that may describe. And if we look beyond that label, right, are we able to have a greater understanding of this child's needs, wants, supports, right, that may be helpful to this child, whatever it is. And so as we're wrapping this talk up, right, I hope this invites you to be reflective in your own practice and really to look at kids with wonder and awe and, delight and enjoy in what they bring to us and explore that with kiddos.
So,
Yes. So
so
exciting.
so many things. Yeah, but I think both of us are probably really tired right now, and that might be coming through. But I do hope that this was helpful because it's something that continues to come up. And so we want to be responsive to y'all's questions. And yeah, no, this is great.
Yeah.
And if any of you guys have certain diagnoses that you're curious about or that you've been asked about with parents or caregivers, email us info@playtherapyspace.com or Christy at playtherapyspace.com, Maggie at playtherapyspace.com. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram.
And
And
and go to our website, playtherapyspace.com.
yeah, and we're on YouTube too. So yeah, let us know. So thank you, Christy.
Thanks and have a great start to your 2026.
Happy 2026.
I know. Woohoo! Happy New Year's. Yeah. Yeah. And we hope you continue to join us in the year 2026 as we explore different topics. So,
Bye, Christy.
bye.